small forward-ish player. Scotty a little bit bigger, more of a power forward. Um, but it's like, if Scotty's gonna be our guy, which he is, we need shooting. Even if Scotty has improved and has become more of a better shooter, like, is this new shooting like hot streak from RJ Barrett? Is it something that's going to stay? Is it going to falter and he's going to go back to being a very average to below average shooter? I think there's a lot of questions that need to be answered with that. And I'm excited for that. I mean, hopefully, maybe this development with Canada over this, playing for Team Canada over the summer, going into this new season, yeah, really helps. So we'll see. But I guess moving on from our teams, and not that, I don't really want to talk negatively on any of these young guys. I really hope that everybody who got drafted and anybody who didn't get drafted does well. But if you had to say to someone was going to be a bust, who would you say that is?
A bust. So, I mean, I wouldn't say anyone outside the lottery would be a bust, in my opinion. I don't feel like that's I feel like once you're out of the lottery, you're kind of in the good. I don't know. The guy from the Hornets, I don't really know much about, so I don't know if it's really a bust because, I mean, yes, it's the 7 overall pick, but in a weak draft, is it really that much? I'll go Richardson. I really don't believe in him, especially in that Hawks team. It just looks weird. It's a weird fit. He's a weird player. I don't think he's going to be that good. I understand they had Capella and all that, but I mean, I don't know. For the Hawks to be in such a weird space and then end up with the number 1 overall pick, they got put in a weird spot, and for them to get Richardson, I don't know. I'm not him. Maybe not biggest bust, but I think it'll be the biggest disappointment as far as like when you factor in like where they got picked. Like, I mean, Ron Holland is another interesting one. I mean, I think they went for value versus like fit. I don't really think Ron Holland fits in Detroit. And I mean, yes, he's a good player, but I didn't think he was 5th overall pick level player. I mean, people talked about him being like the mid, like where like McCain got drafted. I think there'll be plenty of guys that got drafted after him that'll be much better. So I'll stick with Ron Holland. Ron Holland will be mine. I don't want to hate on the number 1 overall pick too much. I feel like that's too easy to call a bust.
That's fair. I think Zach Richey could be a very good player. I just think my biggest, not necessarily even really a knock, but I think the biggest thing to look for him is just in moments where Trae Young isn't on the floor, how does he do? And the reason I say that is because Trae Young's a very ball dominant, James Harden-esque player where they're so good with scoring and passing that it's not really a system, not them fitting into a system, it's a system fitting around them, types of players. I saw a stat before the draft. In his 2 years and, high-level competitive play in the European League, Zach Richey had 6 total isolation, possessions. 6. There's players who probably have that in the first half in the NBA. So it'll be very interesting to see how he can contribute when there's not the best creator already on the court to help him with that. So I understand you said like it's an easy pick, but I think there is some bust potential there. But I think overall he played really good defense. He can shoot it pretty well. At worst, I think he's just a really decent 3D player. But for the first overall pick, like you said, it's a little bit scary.
He's just Sadiq Bey. He's what they lost. He's Sadiq Bey.
Yeah, honestly. But even then, I feel like Sadiq Bey has a little bit more creation ability. But I'd say my player who I think will probably be the biggest bust, if I had to guess, not that I really want anyone to be a bust, is probably Stephon Castle. And the reason I say that is just more so because of where he got drafted. I think when it comes down to it, you can already see from his summer league play. I think he's had 2 games so far at this point. Amazing athlete and has decent to average playmaking chops. But you can still just tell that his shooting is still so much in the works. And I think for a team um, like the Spurs, you definitely can tell are trying to accelerate this process of contending because how many more years you have left with Greg Popovich. You don't want to waste any years with Wemby when he's already probably a top 20 player off rip just going into next season. Like that's not even like a overreaction. That just simply just is how good he is. I think Rob Dillingham would have been a better pick simply just because I think he brings scoring and passing, and he's a proven scorer and passer. Where Stephon Castle played shooting guard in college, and now he's just transitioning to a point guard role on a team that already has Chris Paul, on a team that already has a lot of other guards.
Trey Jones.
So it's going to be interesting to see how much of those playmaking chops really do come into fruition. But he just really can't shoot at like an NBA level yet, where I think you don't sag off of him. So I really think I just think that he could falter because of his inability to shoot at a consistent level. But I also think if he can figure out how to, score and be productive in a NBA offense, I think you genuinely can be one of the best players in this draft, and a superstar level player. But when you start talking about prospects, especially ones that are already drafted, and you're saying if he does this, if he does that, that's where I feel like it starts getting a little bit muddy and kind of scary, especially for a player who's picked so high at number 4, saying, "Oh, if he can develop a 3," and it's like you don't really want to say if about his ability. It's more so like I'd say like if he can make it better, but he really wasn't
master it.
Yeah, so I think that would probably be my player. I'd say is the biggest bust, if there is going to be a bust in this draft. But anything else you want to talk about in the draft before we move on to free agency?
Nah, that's all I got for them.
Okay, moving on to NBA free agency. Any immediate winners or losers?
I think the clear winner is the Sixers. I think we can all agree on that. I don't know if that's your thoughts, but I mean, they went and took themselves they remember this is a team that was fighting the Celtics back and forth, and this year, yes, they were injured, and yes, Embiid was injured in the first round, but they did still get bounced out in the first round. And they instantly turned around and said, "Hey, like we're serious about winning. Like we want this." So they go out and get a Paul George. They go out and get a bunch of other guys. I mean, Nick Batum. I'm trying to think who else. Help me out, Jhyrah. Come on.
The Sixers.
They signed
who
Max
they
to a
lose?
friendly deal. No, who do they sign? I mean, they lost Tobias Harris, which another happy about. I mean, there's a lot of guys that they traded Buddy Hield, who was an issue for them. I mean, everything they wanted to do this offseason, they did. Ooh, what am I talking about? The Mavs. The Mavs also won free agency. Oh, my God.
They picked up Andre Drummond, Caleb Martin, Eric Gordon, and they brought back Kelly Oubre.
Yeah. The Drummond one's a huge pickup for me because, I mean, I remember we were talking about he's, like, I think the most underrated player in the free agency. And then, I mean, Eric Gordon's obviously a solid vet, just had this okay season. I mean, they're not asking for guys to come in and score 15. They're asking for guys to come off the bench and score 6 or 7 every game. And Eric Gordon can do that 100%. Drummond can come in and help rebound and help take the pressure off and be having to rebound all the time and carry a load on his back. It does suck they had to waive Paul Reed. I know he was a big guy for them, and I mean he had some good performances for them in the playoffs. I know against Boston he played pretty well. But then I mean I overlooked the Mavs. The Mavs also had a great offseason as well. They turned a bag of chips into Klay Thompson, Najee Marshall, and Quentin Grimes. I mean, those were 3 serious players all they really had to give up was like a second. Who else did they go? They gave up Josh Green, which I know may hurt some Mavs fans, but I feel like when you hear that you're getting Clay in the deal, and when you factor in that, I don't think Josh Green had a great playoffs period. Definitely not the finals.
Yeah, he wasn't as good as I really wanted him to be as a Josh
And then I
Green
mean,
fan.
Najee Marshall is also a very underrated pick, and then also they get off Tim Hardaway's contract as well as just Tim Hardaway in general. I mean, again, not a good finals, not a really good playoffs either. I mean, again, that's the Mavs going all in. That's them saying we don't want this to be a one-time thing. We want to be back in the finals next year, and that's the Sixers saying, "Hey, we just saw one of our rival teams win a championship, and they kick our ass every year. Like we're tired of it, and we're going to go out and match their star power, and we're going to go out and get defensive wings that can help be the Boston Killer." I mean, that's the same thing as what the Knicks have doing. The Knicks have also gone out and trying to get wings they can defend. They got McCall, and they re-signed OG. I mean, people are starting to really buckle down. There was no like huge moves for me as far as like a bunch of like different ones, but I feel like the teams that needed to get better or needed to fight to stay relevant did that. And I feel like there's just a lot of teams that are in the limbo right now. I mean, the East especially. There's a lot of teams that I'm just like, what are they doing? I mean, the Nets, oh my god, the
Well, the Nets are
Raptors, the
tanking.
Hornets.
The Nets are positioning themselves to get Cooper Flag.
They can do that all they want, and then they'll end up losing the lottery. I mean, there's a lot of teams, I mean, that have like nothing to build on other than hoping they get a good pick this year. I mean, the Hornets are one of those teams. The Pistons are one of those teams, I think. I mean, they've committed a lot of money.
The Pistons roster is actually pretty decent, honestly.
They have a lot of money committed on certain places that I feel like this. I mean, you better hope Cade's the guy. I mean, he's only had like 2 healthy seasons out of the 4 or 5 he's in the league, and he's getting 40 mil.
I mean, I think he's already been a player that you can't let him leave. No superstars coming to Detroit. Kind of like the same thing with the Raptors with Scotty Barnes. And I think Cade's actually an amazing player and will only get better. But I think some of the money that you're going to see over free agency, we have to recognize not only is the CBA, and the salary cap increasing, so you're only going to see larger and larger numbers. So as something I was saying to y'all is we kind of, as fans, our wow factor kind of needs to also increase with the number. In the sense of, we're going to look at 70 million and be like, oh my God, you're paying that guy 70 million. But then, if you put it into perspective, like 70 million 2 years from now, like in the future, will be more like 40 million like this year or last year, where it's like you're kind of just like you're like a second option for a team.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think for me personally, a team that I really thought won free agency, where they could have easily been one of the losers I've written down, was Golden State. I think picking up Kyle Anderson is a really good pickup for them, because he's like a really good glue guy who can just do a little bit of everything for them. For a team that was really searching for anybody after Draymond was gone for those 12 games. I mean, even now, even in his later stage of his career, you can just see how much Draymond means to the Warriors, where they are a completely different team with and without Draymond. I think picking up Buddy Hield, who leads the league in 3-pointers made since actually coming into the league, with Curry being right behind him. I mean, hey, you're talking about losing Klay Thompson.
He shot more efficient than Curry last year as well.
Yeah. So, like, picking up, talking about losing Klay Thompson, but then picking up Buddy Hield, it's almost like saying, I just gave you all my apples for you to give me all your oranges. Like, it's still a fruit. It's still pretty good, and you're still going to enjoy it. Like,
it's still a fruit.
Yeah. I think Anthony Melton could also be a really good pickup for them. He had a lot of injury concerns. Yeah. But at the end of the day, he's just one of those players where he can do a little bit of everything, but then also he just immediately is a vet who's been in a lot of different places, and they have a lot of young guys on that team who, I mean, of course,